Welcome to part 2 of our conversation on how to guide Gen Z towards discovering their purpose. Up next.
Now, would you maybe say around that sometimes we estimate the intelligence of Gen Z?
I think
Because my thinking is, they've seen graduate unemployment. So they now know that though university is good, but it does not guarantee me a job. They've seen businesses fail. Mm-hmm. They now know that though being a businessman is good, it does not guarantee
income.
Or sustainability, or something like COVID could easily happen again in the future, or even the recession that we had, and suddenly businesses collapse. And so they're like, I'm going to go with something that I am confident in, an area where I just cannot be easily replaced.
Yeah.
Do we underestimate their intelligence? Do we think that they're delusional maybe?
Let's admit and agree that they are born with knowledge. They are born with knowledge. So enhance it as a parent.
Sure.
Safeguard that knowledge. Empower them to use it wisely. Don't stifle them. Don't restrict them. But most importantly, teach them boundaries as a parent.
And part 2 loading in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, I want to speak about, I want to pick your brain around the pressure that parents sometimes place, adult figures sometimes place on Gen Zs, just around purpose and around finding themselves. I speak to a lot of these kids, and the pressure that schools are placing on them.
Yeah.
The pressure they're getting from their parents, the pressure they're getting from their mentors at times, and even at times it's like it's well intended, but like there's some hectic pressure, and even from the church, there's like pressure to have to go into a particular line of work, pressure to have their ducks in a row, pressure to know how to clearly articulate what their purpose and what their plan for the future is.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, I'm in between, I'm in different spaces. Some of them are saying, look, I'm an artist. I'm not sure what that will look like in the future, And unfortunately, that sometimes results in anxiety.
Yeah. One thing that the older generation, I think, admires about Gen Zs is Gen Zs have faith.
Oh, yes.
They have faith.
Sure.
Right? I'm not saying the older generation doesn't have faith, but Gen Zs, they have faith.
Yeah.
When they set their mind to something and they believe in it, they will do it.
Do you know what data actually says around that? Data actually says they are the most driven generation in the history of humanity.
That's it. Precisely to my point, is that once they set their mind to something, as a parent, trust that they will get to that point in their own time, in their own way. Don't force things on them. For me, it's that fine line on resentment.
Sure.
Because the issue here is we see a lot of parents, also resentment that comes from parents that say, you're going to study law. We are a family of lawyers.
Yeah.
You agree because, you got no option. It's their money. It's their money they're spending for your education. So you agree. You're like, okay, I'll go study law. Halfway through your degree, you realize, reading articles is not my strength. Arguing a case is not my strength.
Yeah.
I love numbers. I want to go into economics and accounting. And this is where the change happens. And you change course. And the parents resent you for it.
And though that's in the most fortunate scenario that they change course. Some drop out.
Some drop out and don't say anything.
Exactly. I was about to get to that. I know a lot of peers who have lived in the city and they've just continued with life, and their parents thought they were studying,
Yeah. And then realize later on, when is the graduation happening?
Yeah.
And every year, like, I'm just short of one module.
Yeah.
Every year, that becomes the excuse. And this is where the resentment happens on the parent side. But also with the Gen Z is that now they have this pressure, right? Because we're talking about the pressure. They have this pressure to satisfy their parents' requirements, the ambition of them studying what they want. So the child is like, okay, let me just do it. But they have pressure in that space. And that is why today, as we sit here, the World Health Organization will tell you, while we have COVID as a pandemic, the next epidemic is mental health.
Yeah.
Right? You actually refer to a lot of pressures. Here's one biggest pressure that Gen Zs also have to deal with. It's social media.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's social media, right?
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Even, I think the worst one now, or the most disturbing one, is Black Twitter.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of pressure there.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the thing. As a parent, how you instill values at a young age, right? How you instill values to your child is very, very important. It will play a huge role in ensuring that your child makes the right choices when they go into social media spaces, when they go to social spaces. What do they place value in?
Right.
What's going to make your child different from the other child is their value system.
And I like that, because now when you take that and you look at these, you've got you've got the choice to either place pressure on your child, or to empower them for whatever space they're going to go into.
Precisely that.
And at times we're so fixated on choosing a career for them that we actually neglect empowering them, because we're just trying to get them into this career path.
And yet they have their own path to live in this world.
Sure.
That is so different from yours. So God trusts you with this being that is your child, for you to guide, to protect, to pray for, right? And somewhere along the line, you add in the other P, pressure. You add it.
Sure.
Right? You add the other P. And this is where the disconnect happens in terms of how children and parents communicate. So for each parent to get to that place where there's transparency at home in their conversation with their children, it will take serious psychological safety to happen between the two. So in a space where the psychological safety, you as a parent are opening up your home to say, in this home, we are going to learn together. We are going to fail so that we can succeed together, right?
Sure.
So just a reminder to those parents, failure is a stepping stone to success.
I like that, because one of the things we actually even find with Gen Zs is because they are so driven, conversely, they fear failure. These kids fear failure. It terrifies them.
The parents put pressure on these children. And that's where the fear comes in. The fear comes from, I don't want to disappoint my parents.
My teachers.
So what are we teaching our children? What are the things that we are using as, a framework for our empowerment as a parent? What is your framework? What is your mental model as a parent? So sometimes we take what we've learned, from our forefathers and our grandparents, and we want to instill it in today's lives. Did you even think that in 2022, you would be working 16 to 48 hours from home and not traveling to work?
Not a chance.
So what does that say? You need to unlearn what you know. Because all of a sudden, no one negotiated with you. On the 26th of March, the president came online and said, we're on complete level 5 lockdown.
And suddenly the study is not the breadwinner's room. It's actually now, everyone now needs to study.
Chaos happened, right? So your living room became your classroom.
True.
Your dining area became your office, right? Maybe your garage became your studio.
Sure.
So things had to shift, and they had to shift very quickly. So why are we struggling to shift our minds about child rearing and raising our children in such a way that we allow them space and we create a fertile environment for them to learn and be interested in the things that are in line with their path?
Sure.
Right? there's a lot of business people that we know of that are not that well educated.
True.
They are dropouts, and some have never even finished high school, but very successful people. So what is the difference between their parent and that parent who says, you've got to complete this studies? The one parent trusted that this child will succeed no matter what. No matter what choice they do, they will succeed. The one parent says, my child is not talented, so they need to go and study. They don't have gifts. And yet they are there, they are evident, the gifts are there. It's just you have darker shades. You don't see your children's gifts. Or you're refusing to see them because they are not approaching you in a manner that you know.
Familiar with. That is so true.
It's an unknown territory.
Now, would you maybe say around that sometimes we estimate the intelligence of Gen Z?
I think
because my thinking is, they've seen graduate unemployment. So they now know that though university is good, but it does not guarantee me a job. They've seen businesses fail. They now know that though being a businessman is good, it does not guarantee
income.
Or sustainability, or something like COVID could easily happen again in the future, or even the recession that we had, and suddenly businesses collapse. And so they're like, I'm going to go with something that I am confident in, an area where I just cannot be easily replaced.
Yeah.
Do we underestimate their intelligence? Do we think that they're delusional maybe?
To some extent, I think we underestimate them. I recall when my niece was born, in 2006, Usiyabonga. I think in about 6 months or 7 months, she had found a way of getting off the bed.
Sure.
So a couple of times my sister and I thought, this child has fallen off the bed. Because she still can't sit up straight, but she knew how to get off the bed.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, how are we going to find out how she's getting off the bed? We placed a camera in there. And what we saw shocked us, right? So she would turn her body, 6-7 months as she would turn her body, and then she would hold on to the duvet covers and the towels, and she would slide herself down.
Sure.
And you'd find her on the floor.
Sure.
She's hearing voices, so she wants to reach the voices. She can't crawl. She can't sit up straight. She can't walk. She's 7 months.
But I love that metaphor. Now, for me, that actually gives us a brilliant metaphor because you underestimated her ability to go down from the bed, you thought she was falling.
Yes, we thought she's falling.
And often parents, adult figures, mentors, teachers, underestimate the ability of Gen Z to study the world around them and make smart decisions. They're actually thinking they're making mistakes.
Yeah, or they're taking shortcuts. That's
sure.
the other thing.
Oh, yes.
Like they're taking shortcuts, right? So she's 16 in January. Straight A's at school.
Amazing.
This kid can go to a stage to receive her accolades 7 or 8 times in one ceremony.
Sure.
Right? That's how she is.
Sure.
So are we going to stifle her? Or are we going to allow her and empower her with good values and allow her to be who she wants to be?
And you know what some parents would have done under those circumstances? Because of their own fear that this kid could be falling off, they could have panicked. They could have shouted. They could have created a space where this kid doesn't want to explore anymore.
Yeah. At 2.5, you would walk into a retail store, and she reads the aisle.
Amazing.
What's written there.
Amazing.
When we took her to daycare the first time, in a week, she knew every child's name in her class. There were 18 kids. And she knew their names, all of them.
Sure.
And her teachers called us in to ask, do you guys even know that this child knows everyone's name in the class, like in 1 week? And then we said, yeah, we've also noticed that she reads the stuff that's written at the retail stores. So what do you do as a parent? Growing up, you would have been told to sit down and keep quiet.
Sure.
Allow the teacher to speak.
Sure.
But today's teachers know best not to do that. Instead, what the teachers did was to give her time in the classroom to teach other children what she knew.
Amazing.
Right? When she attended to, none of us had control over what was going on with the DVDs and the TV. She knew what to plug, what to unplug. When she was sleeping, we didn't know what to touch. The only thing I remember is Celine Dion songs would pop up or Lyra songs would pop up because she would have been watching that.
Sure.
Right? So when you get it to work or to function, there was those two voices, those two songbirds, and she knew all their songs and their lyrics.
Sure.
So let's admit and agree that they are born with knowledge. They are born with knowledge. So enhance it as a parent.
Sure.
Safeguard that knowledge. Empower them to use it wisely. Don't stifle them. Don't restrict them. But most importantly, teach them boundaries as a parent. Teach them boundaries. Because when they know their boundaries, they will know this is a place for me to, this is the framework for me to operate.
And actually, boundaries give us freedom.
They do, in a way.
Because now you know that
how
you can
far
explore.
you can go.
Exactly.
With the exploration.
Unlike living in fear that you might have crossed a boundary already.
Yeah.
And maybe just to close off, what can we learn, as millennials, Gen X, everyone that's an adult figure in Gen Z's life today? What can we learn that can help us guide them better as they find and search for their purpose? Because one of the things we found is that, right now with the pandemic, more than ever, they're asking questions around purpose, around meaning at a much deeper level, because we've realized that, life is actually valuable. We've realized that we cannot invest our entire lives in working for a particular company, because on any day it could easily be liquidated.
Yeah.
And so they're asking deep questions around purpose, around the meaning of life. What can we learn from them that can equip us to journey with them better?
For me, one word, or is it two words? I don't know. Your child is different. Your child is different from you. And here's a scripture to every parent that's going to be listening or watching this podcast. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the things of the world.
Sure.
So apply that with raising your child as well.
Love it.
Don't raise your child the same way that your neighbor is raising their child, the same way that your brother is raising your child is different. That's the only lesson I can impart, is that you descend to that understanding that your child is different. And it is in their difference where opportunities and success will show up.
Amazing.
It is in that difference.
No, I love it. And, for me, it's also one of those that we need to acknowledge that humanity is progressing. And so generations that come after us will discover new things. It was so exciting just the other day reading studies that are starting to come up on Gen Alpha. That this is they are going to change the world. Stuff that they're discovering, trends they're already discovering about this generation after Gen Z was actually exciting. But thank you so much. Lindiwe. I don't know, is there anything else from your side before we close it off for today?
Well, on my side, I would say that, we have grown up in a situation and an environment as Gen X, raising maybe Gen Zs at this point in time, where we were playing outside, right? Mgusha, Kati, Diketo, Marabaraba, chess, all these games that pulled us to go and be in that space with other people and our neighbors.
Sure.
Today's children are growing up with games that are on their hands, right? And as they play these games, let's remember that there's people who build these games also build strategies in those games.
Sure.
So what you feed in your child and the games that they're playing is very fundamental towards their growth.
Absolutely.
We gained physical agility because we played outside. right? They are not exposed to too much to playing outside. They live in a space where every now and then you'll hear them walking towards you to say, I'm bored, right? I would have gotten like a back clap to my parents if I would come in and say, I'm bored. And there was no room to be bored, right? And today's children have also learned and adjusted and adapted to playing alone.
True.
In reality and in real life, they're going to play with other people.
Yeah.
So what are you teaching them as they're playing alone? What values are you instilling to them to appreciate that collaboration is multiplication? How are you making sure that whatever information they're taking in that alone space, is going to assist them to make the impact that they want to make? It's going to assist them to grow to be individuals that place their values first. It's also going to help them understand that they are different. They are different. So as a parent, take that to heart. Your child is different. Your child is not the same as the child next door. Don't raise them taking a vanilla approach.
Sure.
Each child in your household has a different path. Use this podcast and the information that you take out of this to ensure that each child gets different attention from you. Because how you empower the musician is going to be different to how you empower the pediatrician.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
How you empower the artist is going to be different to how you empower that legal representative, the advocate. And what we thought as parents, these are the careers that we know. Guess what? There's careers of the future. There's jobs of the future. The last time I checked, there were about 35 jobs of the future in South Africa. 35. Which direction are you advising your child? Of those 35 that are proposed to be jobs of the future, where is their interest? And how do you empower them to be able to journey that path? And that's how I'd like to leave this call.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lindiwe, for your time, but also for the wisdom that you've shared with us. We would love to hear your feedback. What are your thoughts? If you have any questions, let's create a dialogue. Let's chat as a community, but also look out for the next podcast conversation that will be coming out. And we're going to be speaking about mental health, a conversation that is very important, more especially seeing that it's the beginning of the year. And maybe you've got questions around how is my child coping with school or with bullying or other topics that might be related to mental health. So do be on the lookout, do take care, and do continue journeying with us as we journey with you through what it means to parent or to be an adult figure in a young person's life today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
In our next couple of episodes, we'll be looking at the following topics: mental health, identity, relationships. If you would love to suggest a topic for us to consider, please send us a mail at edge@gracepoint.co.za, edge@gracepoint.co.za. We look forward to hearing from you.